This year marks the 33rd anniversary of the National Wetlands Awards. Yes, the 33rd. Since 1989, this program has recognized over 200 individuals for their contributions to wetlands protection and leadership. Because while we are still learning about the full extent of services that wetlands provide, the incredible richness of their ecosystems, the depths of all their unknown promises, we have long known that wetlands are vital to so much around us. From biodiversity to storm buffering, from water quality to recreation, we know that wetlands are a keystone. And for 3 decades, this event has recognized those leaders helping us protect them. Today, we recognize 5 exceptional individuals who are leaders not only in their communities, but nationally in the furtherance of wetlands protection and education. First, Dr. John White. Next, Zachariah Perry, Mike Mikashon, Dr. Jessica Hua, and Dr. Mark Laska. Thanks to all of you for making the trip to join us here tonight so that we can honor and celebrate in a field where we don't always stop to take a moment and recognize the remarkable contributions of those around us. We are very excited to stop tonight and thank you for your service and all you've accomplished. Before we dig into the main part of the celebration, I would like to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, to the U.S. Forest Service, to USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, to the Federal Highway Administration, and to NOAA Fisheries and NOAA's National Ocean Service for their support and participation in this year's National Wetlands Awards. Thank you. In addition, I want to say my heartfelt thanks to the ELI staff who have worked on this year's program and putting together this wonderful event. First and foremost, Christine Perry, who did so much from handmade, home-baked food to printing the programs to organizing just about everything about this event. Christine, thank you. To Margaret Batting, Megan Ruge, Melody DeMulling, Rachel Jean-Baptiste, Colin Gibson-Tansel, Evan Odoms, Heather Ludke, and many others that made tonight possible. So thank you to our wonderful staff. And now it is my pleasure to pass along the mic so that we can delve into the celebration of these remarkable individuals, the actions they've taken, the energy they've devoted, and the creativity they've extended to protect our wetlands, to restore degraded ecosystems, and to educate everyone everywhere about the importance and the majesty and the risks that wetlands face. I would like to personally thank them and look forward to celebrating them for the rest of the evening. Our first award presenter this evening is Navis Bermudez. Navis, if you'd like to join me. Navis is Deputy Assistant Administrator for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Water. The Office of Water works to ensure that drinking water is safe, wastewater is safely returned to the environment, and surface waters are properly managed and protected. Prior to joining EPA, Navis served as professional staff for the U.S. Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Subcommittee on Water Resources and Environment, was Federal Legislative Director for the Southern Environmental Law Center, and Senior Federal Policy Analyst in the State of New York Governor's DC office. A native New Orleanian, Navis holds a BS in Environmental Studies and a minor in Biology from GW and a Master of Environmental Science from Yale. Navis, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Jordan. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate such pioneering wetlands researchers and champions. Some of my earliest childhood memories are running around in the woods behind my house, which was at the time a new development in the New Orleans suburb. And for a long time, our block was the last one in the neighborhood. So my brother and I and the other neighborhood kids spent a lot of time exploring in what I now realize was a mixture of bottomland hardwoods and swamp. And I used to love to play with the Spanish moss and pretend like they were wigs, which my mom did not like, but it was fun at the time. So this was really the first of many experiences growing up in a place like Louisiana that informed where my interests were in terms of school and work and career. And while I haven't lived in New Orleans for a while, I've spent most of my career focused on protecting water resources for special places like those in Louisiana and all over the United States. Now, as Assistant Administrator in EPA's Office of Water, I get to think every day about how we can best safeguard and restore our treasured waters and make critical investments to protect water quality and public health. And I get to work with great staff too, some of whom are here tonight. So thanks. It's a nice benefit. This year's National Wetlands Awards come at a particularly inspiring time for the nation. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, EPA has historic funding to invest in water. And while infrastructure investments we are making in drinking water and wastewater will benefit public health and the environment, we also have funding for our nation's treasured waters. And that includes $1.7 billion for the geographic programs that span the nation from the Chesapeake Bay to the Puget Sound. We have another $267 million for our National Estuary Program and the Gulf Hypoxia Program. We're calling this influx of funding Water's Moment, and wetland habitat is being elevated along with water in general as at the national level. Especially this month, we're celebrating American Wetlands Month, so it's appropriate that the awards are being held here tonight. As you all know, wetlands are critical, and your work has advanced the nation's understanding and the importance of wetlands too. For our part, EPA is committed to using all the tools at our disposal, not just the funding available to us through the bipartisan infrastructure law, but the regulatory authorities under the Clean Water Act that help us to best protect this critical habitat. For example, we're continuing to develop and provide national wetland condition assessment data to give a fuller picture of the current condition of our nation's wetlands and inform our work to protect our nation's waters. We're supporting states and tribes developing water quality standards for wetlands through our wetland program development grants, and working to make sure our state and tribal partners have the best information available to make decisions for climate resiliency, hazard mitigation, and their own regulatory programs. Finally, I want to confirm for all of you that under President Biden and the Administrator Regan's leadership, EPA is committed to following the best available science in our decision-making process. Without a doubt, the work y'all have done, from researching the consequences of human activities on wetland ecosystems to monitoring restoration projects and to publishing groundbreaking research, has really advanced the field. And of course, this is enabling EPA and state partners to have the best possible information to safeguard wetlands for generations to come. So while I'm here in DC working in an office to protect wetlands, many of you are out there in the field with your waders on, pulling together invaluable firsthand experience of the issues facing our wetlands. From serving on the board of scientific counselors for EPA to promoting awareness of wetlands conservation, all of the award winners here today have led the way with some impressive and innovative efforts. Each of you have made unique contributions to the nation's understanding of wetlands and helps promote and further your community's recognition of their importance. For that, I want to thank all of you and give you much deserved credit for your efforts. But I'm here to present one specific award, and I'm honored to kick off the celebration starting with the award for Wetlands Program Development. While I just met Mick Mickashaw a few minutes ago, I hear from our EPA Region 5 and Office of Wetlands, Oceans, and Watersheds that our staff has worked closely with him and have nothing but wonderful comments about him and his work on the ground. Among our team, Mick has a reputation for being cool as a cucumber, known for his patience and kindness with everyone, regardless of skill level. And he's a killer wetland scientist too. Among his many accomplishments, Mick leads the wetlands program at the Midwest Biodiversity Institute, where he's been dedicated to research, restoration, and understanding aquatic resources, which has been critical to protecting wetlands in his home state of Ohio and wetlands across the nation. His work at Ohio EPA included trainings on wetlands assessment methods that have helped educate EPA professionals both in EPA's Office of Water as well as at the regional level. He's been a key contributor in the development, field testing, and training of the National Wetland Condition Assessment Monitoring Protocols. He's served on the National Wetland Condition Assessment Technical Committee, that's a mouthful, and was a crew leader for the 2011 and 2016 NCWA field surveys. And his work on compensatory mitigation projects in Ohio was critical to ensuring no net loss of wetlands in the region. Mick's leadership in the development of the Amphibian Index of Biotic Integrity, and Ohio's wetland water quality standards has guided the development of similar regulatory standards and programs in other states. His dedication to researching and protecting wetlands has been demonstrated through dozens of research articles, presentations to a variety of audiences across the country. Altogether, the work Mick has undertaken throughout his career has had an undeniable influence on the protection of wetlands in Ohio and throughout the country. His knowledge has been valuable to our EPA region team too, who have utilized his experience in carrying out our projects examining the ecological success of compensatory mitigation in Ohio. Our Office of Water team has had the pleasure of working with Mick for many years, and I'm really honored to present the Wetland Program Development Award to you today. Congratulations, Mick.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm going to share a few words if you don't mind. My first several years at Ohio EPA, there were little to no guidance about which wetlands received protection and which did not. It was a case-by-case decision process, and it was never clear if it was appropriate to impact or preserve any particular wetland. So that was a big change. That was a different time. This was a good time to deal with those issues, and the Ohio EPA staff truly believed that we needed to have a system that treated all wetlands as if they were in a permit application. And so what we did was we decided we're going to need to adopt wetland water quality standards for the state of Ohio. And that was a big step forward. And it resulted in Ohio developing three separate classifications of wetlands, which we call criteria categories. So we had category 1 wetlands, which were assigned to being of actually poor ecological condition. And we had category 2 wetlands, which were assigned to being of fair to good condition. And then we had category 3 wetlands, which were assigned to being of excellent condition. The wetland water quality standards allowed us to then start developing tools that we could use to put wetlands into their appropriate categories. And the number one tool that we used was the Ohio rapid assessment method for wetlands. And this was a quick way, but reliable way to put wetlands into the appropriate category by using their habitat features to develop a score for them and to put them in the correct position based on what we saw in the field. Then that was a level 2 tool. And then we also developed level 3 tools, which included the vegetation index of biotic integrity and the amphibian index of biotic integrity. And those were two I worked on, and actually was the one that developed the amphibian tool. What was interesting about the whole thing is that the ORAM actually turned out to be a human disturbance gradient. And once we realized that, and we were using it as our x-axis for our other assessment tools. So when we developed the VIBI and the amphibian IBI, we could use the information from the Ohio Rapid Assessment Method to make sure that we were making the right decisions about which categories the wetlands should fit in. We also developed performance standards for wetlands that were going to be mitigation for ones that did get impacted, and that was pulling off of the methods that we were using and applying goals that would be met throughout the time. For a long period of time in Ohio, mitigations were not really a good thing, and we weren't getting much quality at all out of them. But with the enforcement of the wetland water quality standards and performance standards, we have ended up in the state of Ohio getting mitigation wetlands that actually at times can reach our level 3 or category 3, which is our some of the best wetlands in the state. But it's got it's almost a and y'all know this, but it's almost an artwork. Not everybody can do it, but they can if they want to and want to learn about it and do it right. And we've seen a lot of that going on in Ohio, and it's a huge improvement from what we had just not so many years ago. And the other thing that Ohio has done is we have also adopted rules, actually a statute for isolated wetlands, and Ohio does protect its isolated wetlands. We owe a lot to to US EPA, especially Region 5, for giving us the money to do this work through grants. And also and for the oversight that they provided throughout the process. And it is, I truly appreciate receiving this award, and it without, no doubt in my mind, this is a great honor, and I thank you so much, ELI, for recognizing me. Thank you.
Good evening. So I'm from Louisiana too, so I would be remiss if I didn't say how y'all are. And for folks from Louisiana, that you would really understand that. So they only gave me 3 minutes, so I could tell stories. It takes me 15 minutes to just get warmed up, so I can't tell any stories here. So you're gonna miss that tonight. My name is Jerome Ford, and I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I am the Assistant Director for Migratory Birds. And I did spend a lot of time in wetlands for, I guess, 20 years as I'm a former refuge manager at the Tensas River National Wildlife Refuge along the Tensas River and down at Bayou Cocodrie. So you know exactly what that means, right? That means alligator, for those of you who didn't know. All right, so now I got a speed read because I just used up about 45 seconds. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the 2022 Scientific Research National Wetlands Award recipient, Dr. John R. White. Dr. White is an internationally renowned scientist who has been contributing to the field of wetland research for almost 3 decades. Dr. White serves as the John and Catherine Day Professor of Oceanography and Coastal Science and Associate Dean of Research for the Louisiana State University's College of Coast and Environment. He earned a BS degree in geology from Washington and Lee University in 1988, a master's degree in geological oceanography, a second master's degree in coastal zone management from Florida Institute of Technology, and a PhD in wetland biogeochemistry from the University of Florida in 1999. John served as an assistant professor of research at the University of Florida for 5 years before joining the faculty at the Louisiana State University in 2004. Over his 30-year research career, Dr. White has received over $4 million in research grants supervised 34 graduate students, and has written over 125 peer-reviewed publications, including book chapters focused on natural and anthropogenic impacts on nutrient and contaminant cycling in wetland and aquatic systems. He has taught courses on oceanography, wetland water quality, and biogeochemistry of wetland soils. He has served the Louisiana State University as the former Associate Director of the Coastal Studies Institute, former Executive Board member of the Coastal Sustainability Studio, and served on the Executive Board of the Coastal Environmental Science major in the college. Dr. White has held several roles serving both the state and the nation. He has served as the Wetland Program Chair for the Soil Science Society of America, the Biogeochemistry Program Chair for the Society of Wetland Scientists, and has served on the Louisiana Governor's Advisory Committee for the Coastal Master Plan. He is currently serving on the Board of Scientific Counselor for the EPA. Dr. White has made an immeasurable impact on the field of wetland biogeochemistry, being among the first to publish on coupled nitrogen and phosphorus cycling in wetland soils. Dr. White is deserving of this award for the multitude of knowledge and research contribution he has directly made to the field of wetland science, as well as his mentorship, training, and inspiration of countless others to pursue careers in wetland research. Please join me in congratulating Dr. John R. White for winning the 2022 Scientific Research National Wetlands Award.
Get my stuff out of the way. I'm gonna have to use these, which I didn't need about 20 years ago. First off, I really want to thank the Environmental Law Institute and their federal partners that have been hosting this award for well over now 3 decades. They've really shined the light on so many of what they call their wetlands champions, and it's really important to get that information out into the public. So it's really a great service. It's also appropriate that maybe ELI champions this award and the ceremony is held here in Washington, D.C. One of the most important issues with wetland protection is the legal protection of wetlands, and particularly the definition of WOTUS, or waters of the United States. As political winds can change back and forth over time, if some of those wetland systems are no longer considered waters of the United States, then the protection of those systems would start to decrease. And that really becomes problematic across the country. So I just want to give a special thanks to all those folks in the federal agencies and the legal profession in our capital that are fighting in their way to help keep our wetlands protected across the nation. So thank you very much for that. It does remind me they're doing their best to keep humanity sort of for sticking itself in the foot. And it reminds me of a Joni Mitchell song trying to keep us from paving paradise and putting up a parking lot, if you remember that song. So that's really important. I want to thank also my many mentors who helped guide me to a wonderful career in science that I've really enjoyed. I want to specifically thank Dr. Ramesh Reddy, and it's maybe not coincidence he is a former award winner of this award from the University of Florida. And he always would start his wetlands class with a simple question. You're standing in a wetland and you gaze out, and what would you see? And people would talk about the plants and the animals, the water, and a whole bunch of other things, even people kayaking, things like that. But very few people ever look down to look at the soil and the mud. And it's through his mentorship that I realized just how important the mud and those invisible microbes are in there, and how important they are to maintaining these wetland processes and give us those functions that we value so much. So I really want to thank him. I have had the great fortune of working in what I'm going to call the hotbed of coastal wetland research at the Louisiana State University. I look back at the research award, and realized that no other university across the nation has won more than one, except for LSU. And I'm honored to be actually the 6th person to have received this award from Louisiana State over that long period of time. And so I have had the great chance to interact, to work with, to know many of the people that have won this award ahead of me. And I just want to thank them for their generosity of spirit and the camaraderie as we've all been fighting the same fight. Someone asked me, why do I think that there's been so many winners from LSU? And the reason is in Louisiana, we have the sea level rise today that most of the coastal wetland systems around the globe are going to have in about 50 years. And if that kind of seems confusing, it's sea levels coming up at 3-4 millimeters a year, but we are sinking at 10 millimeters a year because of the compression of the sediments in the delta, no new sediment filling in those areas. So we have a working model of what sea level is going to look like around the world in 50 years. And that's really important because we're not going to model the impacts. We're actually seeing what those impacts are. We're measuring those impacts. And with our coastal restoration program, we're going to see what will work and what won't work. And those ideas then can move forward around the globe to help preserve the coastal wetlands across the globe. They have a lot of carbon in them. And if the carbon in these wetland systems are removed from the wetland, turned into carbon dioxide, there is no mitigation that humanity can do to keep the CO2 concentrations down in the atmosphere. So it's important to keep, in Louisiana, what's 800 years of stored carbon over 1.5 meters, it's important to keep it in the soil. Otherwise, we're going to be fighting a losing battle. I want to finally thank all the undergraduates and graduate students I had the pleasure of working with. When you said the number, I'm like, did I have that many students? It's I guess you kind of forget over the years. But I want to thank them for their enthusiasm, their creativity. And that really has driven me over the years to do all of the research. I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Lisa Chambers at UCF. She was my former student that actually gave me the honor of nominating me for this award. And so I really appreciate her efforts. And finally, these former students, they are professors at other universities. They're up and down the ladder in consulting companies and NGOs. And they're also at some of the federal agencies like the Army Corps of Engineers and the USDA. And they are really carrying on that legacy throughout all of these places and helping restore and protect what coastal wetlands and freshwater wetland systems that we have remaining. Again, thank you to ELI for doing what they have done over the years to really put this into the public. And thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Chris Worth with the USDA Forest Service here in Washington, D.C. And thanks to the selection committee in Jordan, they couldn't find an aquatic ecologist, so they reached out to the terrestrial side of my staff to get a systems ecologist and wildlife biologist, Jerome, to present tonight's award winner for the 2022 Local Stewardship National Wetlands Award. It is my privilege to introduce Mr. Zachariah Perry, who I had a few minutes to speak with prior to our social this evening. And we have a few things in common, but I'll touch on that later. But let me talk about Zachariah and what's not necessarily printed in your bulletin. Zachariah joined Reed College in Portland, Oregon in 1999 as a grounds maintenance technician with a formal education in botany, horticulture, and environmental science from Oregon State University. Zach brought a unique skill set to the position, as well as a keen interest in a special area he would be entrusted with: Reed Canyon. The 28-acre Reed Canyon is located in the heart of the campus of Reed College. It runs east to west, dividing the campus north to south, and is spanned by 2 pedestrian bridges, and a land bridge. The area includes the headwaters of Crystal Springs Creek, a tributary to Johnson Creek that runs into the Willamette River. And it is also home to Reed Lake, which is believed to be the city of Portland's oldest naturally occurring lake. For better or worse, what Mr. Perry discovered some 20-odd years ago was largely a neglected, ailing, miniature ecosystem, overrun by non-native invasive plants, an earthen and concrete dam that blocked fish passage, and an eroded stream banks due to heavy foot traffic due to its popularity. Working collaboratively with numerous campus faculty and staff, as well as volunteers from throughout the Portland metropolitan area, Zach set forth on creating an ambitious, visionary stewardship strategy to rehabilitate Reed Canyon. For a number of years, Zach has been responsible for managing all aspects of the restoration of Reed Canyon, including the removal of a 70-year-old swimming pool and reconstructing the physical space into a fish ladder designed to allow juvenile salmonids to access Crystal Springs, one of the cleanest and coldest water sources remaining within the city limits of Portland. The Green Army of volunteers that Zach mobilized removed tons of invasive plant materials, reintroduced a wide array of native plants, forbs, trees through innovative methods of propagation and cultivation. He put those skills from Oregon State University to practical use. In addition, Zach developed a system of monitoring changes over time in the canyon and is responsible for creating lasting partnerships with local agencies and science faculty, which helps support adaptive management practices. Zach has led the transformation of an area of the college campus from being a blight to a superlative example of the incredible possibility with restoring the urban commons, contributing to the health of individuals, the community, and the landscape with focused citizen collaboration and engagement. As part of that stewardship strategy, and Zach's a humble guy, he's not likely to say this, you know, he is fondly known as the Reed Canyon guru, in part because he began an outreach program, leading public interpretive tours through the changing canyon landscape. Neighbors, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and just simply interested Portlanders began studying this unique habitat within their community. Today, hundreds of K through 12 students, as well as university and college students throughout the Portland area, tour and study Reed Canyon each year to learn about its natural history, restoration efforts, watershed function, and the importance of green infrastructure within urban ecosystem. Recently, Mr. Perry has been promoted into a position of management at Reed College, allowing him a broader forum to advocate for creating and restoring green infrastructure that supports natural system function and provides tangible benefits to people. Now responsible for the grounds and maintenance department at the college, Zach is able to leverage his expertise and long-standing partnerships to improve and adapt the entire college's operations. He continues to work tirelessly as the guru of Reed Canyon to build further support for what is now considered the gem of the city. and its last free-flowing stream system. Zach's decades-long work in Reed Canyon showcases his inspiring commitment to wetlands rehabilitation, restoring cold water refugia, and successfully promoting green infrastructure, as well as a proven dedication to local, community-based stewardship. Please join me in congratulating Zachariah Perry for his outstanding and remarkable conservation leadership as the 2022 recipient of the Local Stewardship National Wetlands Award.
Thank you, everyone. That was an amazing introduction. Like I don't know if I could have even said it better myself. So thank you so much. So yes, I'm very honored. Thank you for this award. Like many of the recipients before me through the 33 years of the Environmental Law Institute, that they've been honoring champions that work to improve this and study our wetlands. I too am fortunate to work in a field and surround myself with people that are passionate about their jobs and love what they do. I'd like to start by thanking the Environmental Law Institute for honoring me with this award today. Thank you for inviting me to the nation's capital and giving me this opportunity to spend this evening surrounded by so many dedicated stewards and protectors of our wetlands. I'd also like to take a minute to thank my family, Nicole, Logan, Marion, and Nanu, who are all watching this in Oregon. They supported me through the years of my 30-year career and allowed me the time to give my whole self to this restoration project. I know I missed a few soccer games and some weekend getaways, but they understood my passion and gave me the time it took to engage with so much of our community. I'd also like to thank Reed College, a small liberal arts school in the middle of Portland, Oregon, that maybe by accident became the leader in urban watershed restoration. Back in 1999, Reed and the Board of Trustees put their trust in me and believed that I could rebuild and transform an otherwise swampy blight into a beautiful headwater forest nestled in the middle of their campus. That, let's see, sorry, I missed my spot there, but it's the work, as was already mentioned, basically is recognized. It took the blight system, made it a functional watershed that is now recognized as the last free-flowing stream in the city of Portland. It flows from our campus, as mentioned, to the Pacific Ocean unobstructed. At one time and space that used to be host to chlorinated outdoor swimming pool and a variety of non-native invasive species, now proudly supports a newly constructed fish ladder, beavers, otters, amphibians, and migratory endangered salmonids. And before I conclude, a quick shout out to all the local agencies that I've worked with and to those that are involved in their local watershed councils, the many volunteers that have come to our Canyon Day events, and the blossoming scientists that take time out of their busy lives to slow down, look around, and are willing to get their hands dirty. You all motivate me to do more. Thanks again for honoring me with this award. It means a lot to me. And of all those that have contributed to the restoration of Reed College Canyon. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Russ Kaiser. I'm also with EPA. I'm the chief of the Program Development and Jurisdiction Branch. As part of my portfolio, I've got Waters of the US, which was mentioned earlier, Course 401, the Assumption Program, and also the State and Tribal Wetland Grant Program. And again, I've got my degrees from Florida Institute of Technology and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So tonight I have the honor and the privilege to present the 2022 Promoting Awareness National Wetlands Award to Dr. Jessica Waugh. Dr. Waugh is an exceptional researcher whose work goes beyond fundamental research and expands into extensive outreach activities. She ensures her research is impactful in the classroom and the community. Dr. Waugh currently serves as a principal investigator at the Waugh Lab and the director of the Center for Integrated Watershed Studies at Binghamton University. In both roles, she seeks to integrate the fundamental missions. First, to understand the ecological and evolutionary consequences of human activities on wetland ecosystems, and two, to broadly communicate research findings via outreach and engagement efforts with community partners at the local, state, national, and international levels. The Waugh Lab contributes insights into the conservation, restoration, and regulation of aquatic ecosystems by studying the responses to disturbances such as pollution, temperature shifts, and invasive species. Dr. Waugh's path towards becoming a creative and impactful researcher began at Southwestern University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in biology and kinesiology in 2008, followed by a doctoral degree in ecology and evolution from the University of Pittsburgh in 2014. Dr. Waugh followed her academic training by serving as a postdoctoral scholar in natural resources for the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at Purdue University. Following her position as a postdoctoral scholar, she accepted a position as an assistant professor in Binghamton's University Department of Biological Sciences in the fall of 2015. She was promoted to an associate professor in the fall of 2020. That same year, Dr. Waugh also took on the role of director for the University Center for Integrated Watershed Studies. In the fall of 22, Dr. Waugh's lab group will transition into the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where they will continue their wetlands work. Since coming to Binghamton University, Dr. Waugh has established herself as a highly productive and influential scholar, mentor, and innovator in the field of ecotoxicology. She works to understand human-induced environmental changes that alter ecological and evolutionary processes in freshwater ecosystems. Her research focuses on identifying the impacts of contaminants on the natural communities. Dr. Waugh knows that the research has limited impact without the public's knowledge and engagement. She strives to integrate her research into community activities and policy development. In her tenure as the director for the Integrated Watershed Studies, Dr. Waugh has established a strong culture of collaboration in the center and has increased its outreach and community impact. Dr. Waugh goes beyond public outreach by developing engaging research and education programs with various audiences, and it's those audiences where they are, which is extremely important. And again, this is all in with the ultimate goal of protecting wetlands. Dr. Waugh and her students developed an outreach program named the Wild Waiters. The Wild Waiters use a multifaceted approach to encourage education and public involvement in wetlands preservation at a Waters use multifaceted approach to encourage education and public involvement in wetlands and preservation in multiple levels by engaging K through 12 students, the general public, and disabled populations. Since 2014, the Law Lab has worked with the local school districts, state agencies, local PBS stations, and community groups and science museums in upstate New York and in Pennsylvania's rural communities to educate and engage diverse audiences in wetlands preservation. Dr. Waugh's numerous and varied outreach and engagement activities has brought the results of her research out of the lab to aid community efforts and help promote awareness of the need for wetlands conservation and restoration. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Jessica Waugh for winning the 2022 Promoting Awareness National Wetlands Award.
Thank you everyone for attending, and it is such an honor to be here to receive this award, especially the Promoting Awareness Award, because this is something that we all recognize. Wetlands are facing numerous challenges, and the resources, the value of wetlands affect communities. And so what better way to protect wetlands than by engaging communities? And so, in fact, the day before I boarded the plane to be here, my lab, we were in the midst of field trips with third graders, teaching them how to collect biodiversity data to help us understand how biodiversity can protect wetlands from disease. And so one of the things that I am always reminded of is the incredible educators, the K through 12 educators that we have that are so committed to teaching our children. I'm reminded of the amazing capacity of our kids to collect and to be curious, to contribute to understanding and protecting science. I'm also reminded that when working with children, working with third graders, they seem to respond best to a particular pitch and volume that I'm not used to, hence the loss of my voice. So with that, I intend to keep this short and to the point, so 3 points. First, I wanted to thank the Environmental Institute. I am so grateful for having this opportunity to have had conversations with people that have been so committed to protecting wetlands. I will leave here energized and ready to do more. Second, I wanted to thank Binghamton University, which has provided so much support to me and members of my lab, not just with the research, but importantly in supporting us in our community engagement work, something that is just so rare. Lastly, I would not be here without the incredible support of all the people that have worked in the lab, that have supported me through my life. My parents, who I think are watching today, who probably still wonder what I do. The community partners that are so engaged and just work so well with us are always on board to getting kids interested about our last project, parasites. Who cares about parasites? Well, these kids and these educators do. And lastly, my incredible students, one of which is here, Dr. Vanessa Werthner, my first PhD student, who now works for the EPA, but was, yes, she deserves a round of applause. She now works for the EPA, but was instrumental to getting our community engagement work up and running. So with that, thank you so much again for this award. I am so honored and look forward to having more conversations. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Pendergrass. I'm the Vice President for Programs and Publications at the Environmental Law Institute. It has been my honor to attend most of these, certainly starting with the first, but I think that one of my colleagues, Jim McElfish, who's in the audience, may be the only person that has attended all of them. We who have had the chance to do many of these, been to many of these at ELI, consider it to be our most inspirational event. And that's because, as you have just heard about and from the four prior winners, what they do is truly inspiring and incredibly important work. And so ELI is honored to honor them, and honored to, I have the honor to present the 2022 Business Leadership National Wetlands Award to Dr. Mark Laska. Dr. Laska has more than 25 years of postdoctoral experience as an ecological restoration practitioner and has focused his company, Great Ecology, on improving the health and functionality of wetland, riparian, intertidal, and upland ecosystems, conducting more than 1,000 projects since 2001. He has performed or overseen wetland work and research in over 30 US states and internationally in Papua New Guinea, Costa Rica, Canada, and China. Dr. Laska obtained his bachelor's in biological science from University of Colorado Boulder, his master's in ecology from Fordham University, and a doctorate in ecology and evolution from Rutgers University. Following graduate studies at Fordham and Rutgers, he launched his company, Great Ecology, a pioneering ecological restoration consulting firm that he has now led for more than 20 years. During his career, Dr. Laska has delivered approximately 6 dozen professional presentations focused on wetland damages, restoration design, and mitigation at conferences and industry events in the US and internationally, including for the Society for Ecological Restoration, the National Mitigation and Ecosystem Banking Conference, Society for Toxicology and Chemistry, and on and on. He regularly presents to college students and around the nation on matters related to ecological restoration, including designing and restoring highly functional wetland systems within rural and urban environments. Dr. Laska has authored or co-authored more than a dozen peer-reviewed papers, book chapters focused on wetland restoration and mitigation. He has additionally authored numerous popular articles related to wetlands functionality, restoration, and mitigation. Through his leadership at Great Ecology and as part of the over 1,000 completed projects, he has overseen more than 250 projects with wetland compliance, restoration, or mitigation components. This includes projects throughout the world that total well over 100,000 acres of wetlands that have been evaluated, created, enhanced, restored, and or permanently protected. High-profile wetland project sites that he has worked on or supervised at Great Ecology include Brooklyn Bridge Park, the Croton Water Treatment Plant in New York City, Del Mar Fairgrounds in San Diego, Woodbridge Waterfront Park in New Jersey, and Corktown Common in Toronto. He also worked on some of the restoration work for the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Dr. Laska has developed a reputation as a highly creative innovator who seeks to bring implementable solutions to complicated ecological problems in wetlands and coastal estuary systems for the private sector. His projects have affected corporate balance sheets and influenced thinking in sustainability at the highest levels of numerous Fortune 100 companies. He has been active for ports, state and municipal governments, and nonprofits throughout the US. This wide diversity of clients and projects has solidified his reputation as a fair scientist and impartial advocate for the environment. So please join me in congratulating Dr. Mark Laska for winning the 2022 Business Leadership National Wetlands Award in absentia.
Hello, everybody, and thank you. I apologize for this pre-recorded thank you message, but I am on a long-planned trip to Israel, and so I am joining you from across the world. It's an incredible honor to receive the Business Leadership Award from Eli. I've spent more than 25 years in the ecological restoration field, and nearly 21 of those years with the company I founded, Great Ecology. I've worked on over 1,000 projects at Great Ecology, and most of the projects I've worked on over the course of my career have had a wetland component. This means I've had a front row seat to the ways that wetlands are discussed, regulated, and restored, and wow, have we come a long way. My interest in wetlands really took root when there were 2 major oil spills during my early years in grad school at Rutgers. I was just starting my doctoral work, and there was a major spill both in Alaska and in New Jersey, and it was clear that these oil spills were going to have a major impact on wetland ecosystems in both the short and long term, and I became fascinated by whether and how we could even bring back ecological functioning to these systems. In the years since, as a practitioner, I've deepened my understanding of how ecosystems and communities recover from these and other long-term injuries. And when you combine how we can recover systems from decays due to urbanization, it is wonderful to see how the field has grown and expanded. I've also seen how restored wetlands have changed over the past 25 years. In the early days of wetland restoration, you'd frequently see these boxy things that didn't resemble the natural systems in the area at all. Now, a fully established, created, or restored wetland can be difficult, if not downright impossible, to tell from the surrounding wetland areas, in large part because the local wetland ecology is considered, and there's really good research and evidence that supports that as well. I've worked alongside hundreds of designers and planners and other scientists to develop wetlands and create and design wetland systems that are both aesthetically pleasing, such as the over 50 projects we've completed in urban parks. And they also offer significantly improved ecosystem services, habitat, and for many people, a sense of place. These are wetlands people want to visit, and now it's typical, if not almost expected, to see wetlands integrated into all sorts of public spaces. I've had a career filled with fascinating, meaningful work, and I am so pleased to see there's a greater collective understanding of wetlands and their importance to our well-being and the health of our planet. People, like the other awardees you've heard from today, have been instrumental in helping build that understanding through research, advocacy, community involvement, and education. I couldn't have achieved a Business Leadership Award without a business. So when I started Great Ecology, regulations around wetlands and public attitudes towards them were very, very different. I was relegated to the back of the room back in those early days of working on projects. Today, we sit at the head of the table, and it's very, very exciting. Working on behalf of wetlands requires the ability to shift with changes to regulatory and business climates, a deep understanding of different wetland ecosystems because different systems require different approaches, and a robust commitment to wetland science. I couldn't have done it alone. I've had hundreds of employees at great ecology over 21 years. Those employees, past and present, have helped make my work possible. I feel honored to have worked alongside so many passionate people dedicated to helping restore ecosystem health and function. I'm particularly honored to have worked with people whose drive to improve and protect wetlands has prompted inquiry, research, and further education. Most importantly, my wife Yael and my 4 children have been along for the ride of a lifetime, and I am grateful for their support and love throughout my career. Thank you to the people who have helped make Great Ecology a success. Thank you to Eli for this really wonderful honor. And finally, thank you to everyone out there doing work to create, restore, protect, and advocate for our wetlands, because the work you're doing now will inspire the next generation.
Can everyone give another round of applause to our wonderful wetland heroes? Thank you for the work you've done and continue to do. Thank you to our federal sponsors, our presenters, and to our lovely audience tonight. I invite you to eat some more food, have another drink, and congratulate our winners in person. Thank you.